I wanted to tell you my story today of my cancer journey so far, how I discovered it, the things that I've learned through it, and then what might be next for me. And I'm hoping that, especially for the women in the audience today, that what I share with you can be helpful to you or perhaps some of your friends. Because that is one of the biggest things that I've learned, is that sharing this information brought many people to me who have been through it or something like it. And I have learned a great deal from these women. So let's start with how I found out that I have DCIS, that is short for Ductal Carcinoma in Situ, which means there are cancerous cells growing inside me, but they're inside the milk duct, so they haven't spread outside yet, at least as far as they know. They really don't know for sure until they take the tissue out completely and put it, I don't know, in a blender or whatever they do, and some scientist looks at it under a microscope, and then they can really tell me, what I'm dealing with. But as far as we know, I went in for a mammogram this year, as I did last year, and they called me back. Usually I get one of those letters that says, just come back in a year, which is what I got last year. That's all it said. Good job, come back next year. I come back this year and I get a phone call right away saying, we'd like you to come back in. It was just sort of hard, like the image was hard to read. So I'm thinking, it's nothing, because, for me, it is hard for them to get a good mammogram because I am very, very small and very, very dense breast tissue, which is hard to read on a mammogram. Actually, I've learned basically impossible to read on a mammogram. So they have me come back. They said, the reason you're back this year is because we saw something last year. Oh, really? Boy, that's news to me. No one mentioned it to me last year. It's grown and it has changed. So we're going to take some more pictures. You're going to wait right here. We're going to have the radiologist read them while you're here, and then we'll come in and tell you what we need to do next, if anything. So I'm waiting there with my little robe on and freezing to death in this room while the radiologist reads. The gal comes back and she goes, he says, just come back in 6 months. Now, I've had many friends who've had breast cancer. One of them, my best friend from high school, Cheryl. So I'm texting Cheryl after I leave. This is what they said. This is what they found. This is what they said. And she said, no, no, no. She calls me, which usually she's a texter, but this time she picked up the phone and she said, you are going to ask for a biopsy. That's exactly what they said to me. Come back in 6 months. This was 10 years ago in her case. I pressed them for a biopsy. She's a veterinarian, so she lives in the world of medicine. And when they did the biopsy, they found out I had cancer, and then they took a breast. Basically, that was the scenario. So it was really hard for me to advocate for myself, because I just really, I thought it was nothing, overreacting on my friend's part. But I know Cheryl, she won't let up. She was very insistent. So I called. I need somebody to order a biopsy for me. They did that. I went in. It was a horrible experience. Passed out during the biopsy, but they were able to get the tissue before I fainted. And it turned out same thing as Cheryl. Same thing as Cheryl. And I went from having no doctors overnight to having 4 doctors, a surgeon, an oncologist, a radiologist, and a plastic surgeon. All 4, like, whoo, one fell swoop. And I'll tell you what, how I found out. So they did the biopsy on Tuesday. On a Friday afternoon, I get an email because I signed up for something called My Chart. You've got test results. Oh, okay, click. Test results open. There's this caution symbol, carcinoma, malignant, and I just couldn't believe my eyes. This is how I found out on a Friday afternoon at 3:30. You've got cancer. So I'm going to take you through Doctor 1 through 4 and what I learned, and then we'll get into the MRI and more of what I learned. So doctor number one, my surgeon, really, really nice man. And he explained to me that with what I have, doing nothing is not an option, because that was the first thing I thought, well, maybe I'll just do nothing. He said, I have one patient who has chosen to do an MRI every 6 months, and and I would not even recommend that. We surgically, we really need to go in. He showed me the kind of cells that are growing inside of me, and said, so your option will be a lumpectomy or a mastectomy. Those are your choices as far as his advice. Then I see the oncologist. So the oncologist says, well, in addition to whatever you decide, lumpectomy, mastectomy, we recommend that you go on these anti-cancer drugs because of the type of cells that are growing inside of you that we can see from the biopsy. So I say, great. I've already decided I'm not taking any weird drugs. I've already decided that before I walked in there. Made this guy incredibly nervous. My mom was with me, and she said she could see his leg like underneath the table going like this, because I'm just like in his face. And I say, well, great. Why don't you share what the side effects of these drugs are? Drug number one affects your bones and your joints, osteoporosis, all kinds of joint pain. I said, well, that's out. There's no way I'm ever taking that. What's my next choice? He whatever it is. I said, what? Tell me about the side effects for that one. He goes, blood clots in the legs. I said, okay, well, that's out too. I guess we're done here then, right? And he's like, I guess so. And then he left the office. So I'm not going to poison my body. I will not do that. The reason I was on estrogen for as long as I was, up until just a few weeks ago, finding out this cancer is estrogen positive, is to help my bones. Okay, I'm not going to take some kind of poison that's going to take away my bone density. That's crazy. So that was the oncologist. Then I met with the radiologist, and that song that I sang, I'd written that song before I met with her just a couple days before. So I sang her the whole song. There's like 8 verses. She just loved it. But what she said is, listen, if you do a lumpectomy, you've got to do radiation. But today, good news, it's so advanced, they can really target the area. It's only 3 weeks. You're not going to lose any hair except for like in your, around this area. And, I'm not a hairy-chested woman, so it didn't bother me to hear that. So, and she was very, very nice. She also went into detail on this type of cancer that grows in you right now. There's different grades of it. You have the grade and this other marker that basically says it is burning through. I mean, it is like fast growing. And that's, of course, the worst kind. So doing nothing is not an option for you. Then I met with a plastic surgeon, and this guy talks a mile a minute. My mom's in there with him, Dr. Chang. He, on the exam table, they have like that tissue paper, this sort of, so he's pulling it down, drawing breast after breast after breast on this tissue paper. We cut here, nipple sparing, non-nipple sparing, blah, 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 blah. Talking about, boob droop, which, you measure, and size and cc's and volume, all kinds of stuff. I mean, a mile a minute. My mother finally had it, and she just blurts out loud this swear word, and that kind of brought a halt to that conversation. But he actually did think it was pretty funny. It was pretty funny, and it's definitely going to go in my breast cancer show. So then we have the MRI. Now, you really don't know. The surgeon prepared me, and he said, listen, here's what happens when you have an MRI, and you lie face down, your breasts hang in these two, breast holder things, and then they can really see, your lymph nodes and all of your tissue clearly. He says in 25% of the cases, we find more. We find more of something. So I just want to prepare you for that. And my case was exactly that. So I'm going to show you this. This is what he said. It's not some little tiny pea, which is what they thought. It's the size of now this is like a medium-sized egg. Mine is the size of a small egg. Now for these medium-sized eggs, well, let's talk eggs. Let's talk omelets. So if you're going to make an omelet, what's an average size omelet? It's 3 or 4 eggs, right? Typically, 3 or 4 egg omelet, if you're an omelet eater. Now, if I did a lumpectomy, so I have a 3 egg breast, let's say, and I have one egg that needs to be taken out, but it's not just the egg, they need to get clear margins, so it's probably like an egg and a half. There is nobody who's going to eat, a 1.5 egg omelet does not exist, okay? That's, you either do a scrambled egg or you do like 1 egg, fried egg, easy up, whatever your choice is. So that would be absolutely ridiculous for me to do a lumpectomy. So my choice gets narrowed down and mastectomy. Then the question is symmetry. So what Dr. Chang, my plastic surgeon, and my surgeon explained is that the happiest women going through this and making a decision, is it 1 breast, is it 2, do I reconstruct, do I not? The happiest women by far, and of course they've been tracking this for decades, are women who have symmetrical breasts. Symmetrical. So women who have double mastectomy and where they reconstruct both of them. Now, the reconstruction is not like, let's say you want to go in for, bigger breast or smaller breast where they're just dealing with fat and then they put in some silicone to replace or take away. When you have had a mastectomy, all of your fat is gone. And your fat, it goes all the way up to here, actually, in the breast. So it starts here and it goes down. And so basically what you end up with after mastectomy is like concave. So they can't just put in a silicone replacement right underneath your skin. In my case, they can spare the skin, which was great. They actually have to go in and put a spacer behind your chest wall muscle, push out your muscle over time, and then they fill that in. So you're going to have skin, muscle, and then this silicone. So so that it's protected, right? So you don't like walk into something and then it punctures your. That would be so bad. That would be totally bad. So the other thing is that you have to consider 1 versus 2. Like this breast, my left breast is totally clear of cancer, but could I get it? Would I be worried about that in the future? Of course I would. But for me, I had to decide. I'm a performer. I don't want to have to worry about things falling out of my bra, like a fake, what I'm saying, like a fake boob falling out of my bra during one of my performances. I don't want to have to, like some of my friends who are getting older who've had a mastectomy, like she says, I can look in photos now and I see how one is lower than the other. That kind of bothers me. And I don't want to have that either. So what I've decided is I'm going to have teenage breasts for the rest of my life. Decided on a double mastectomy. It will be next Friday afternoon. The recovery from that is quite painful, I hear. And but in a month following, I should be in pretty good shape. They're going to give me pain drugs, all of that kind of stuff. And but here's the biggest thing that I've learned from all of this is that when you're going through something like this, letting people know what's going on with you so that you can receive help, support, prayers. It's been incredible how many people have reached out to me. What can I do for you? And I've learned so much too about how to be one of those people for others. When I find out that somebody dear to me has cancer. So I'm learning and I'm listening, and I've talked to so many women and learned so much from them, things that doctors never told me, maybe forgot to tell me, that will help me, But the biggest thing is to be open to receiving help, which is not an easy thing for me because I'm like, oh, I don't need help. I'm very independent, blah, blah, blah. So I'm learning to do that. And it's been really hard. It's been really hard. but it's good. And what my friends have told me, and they said, you know, it not only helps you, but it helps others when you receive their help that they've offered.